Have you ever felt like you're just drowning in information? Like the world of science and the world of humanities are just completely separate, speaking different languages almost. It makes getting a truly holistic understanding feel, well, almost impossible sometimes. It's a really common feeling, I think. Well, today on the Deep Dive, we're going to explore a really fascinating article by Thonajam Umishkanta Singh. He actually proposes a pretty powerful solution to this exact problem, and it leverages some significant educational reforms happening in India.
That's right. And the core of our deep dive today is really how we can bridge what C.P. Snow famously called the two cultures, the science world and the humanities world. How do we bring them together in our education systems? And what's so compelling here, I think, is that this isn't just theory. It's actually being pushed by major policies like India's National Education Policy 2020, and it's being demonstrated through, practical course design. Singh's article gives some really concrete methods based on his own experience for integrating natural sciences, humanities, and social sciences right into university curricula.
Right. So by the end of this deep dive, you should really get why narrow specializations maybe aren't enough anymore for our rapidly changing world. That's a key point Singh makes. You'll see how this new integrated approach could genuinely empower future generations, and even how universities are already starting to put these quite groundbreaking ideas into practice. Let's dive in. So I think we can all agree acquiring knowledge is, it's essential, right? But how we share that knowledge, that's constantly evolving. Just think about the incredibly complex problems we're facing globally today.
Exactly. I mean, you look at 21st century issues, things like the recent pandemic, public health crises, food security, healthy food supply, clean water, clean energy, environmental degradation, climate change. They're all incredibly complex and really challenging to manage if you're only using knowledge from science and technology from S&T alone. There's a dire need for experts from both sides, the sciences and the social sciences, to work together to find feasible solutions. These problems are interconnected.
And this is exactly where our traditional education systems, the ones based on disciplines, kind of hit a wall. When you have university departments often working in their own silos, it's not really conducive to developing these comprehensive solutions, is it? Which brings us to that crucial point Singh exercises. Narrow specializations just don't give you the intellectual flexibility, the spirit of innovation that you need to cope with such a rapidly changing world. Okay, so if the conventional systems aren't quite cutting it, what's the alternative? What's the blueprint look like? This is where India's national education policy, the NEP 2020, really comes into the picture. It's also a fascinating path forward.
Yeah, the NEP 2020 is it's really designed for transformational reforms across the board in schools and higher education in India. It explicitly states there will be no rigid boundaries, no hard lines between arts and sciences, or between curricular and extracurricular, or vocational and academic streams. The whole aim is promoting a truly holistic education. And importantly, it gives humanities and arts equal weight to STEM science, technology, engineering, and math. This policy really provides the flexibility needed to introduce courses that cut across disciplines, to actively bridge those two cultures that C.P. Snow talked about.
That sounds like a really decisive move towards what we often hear called liberal education globally. The Association of American Colleges and Universities, for instance, describes it as an approach to learning that empowers people. It helps them deal with complexity, diversity, change. Think of it less like a checklist of subjects and more like building mental agility. It's about getting broad knowledge, science, culture, society, but also studying something specific in depth. And ultimately, it's about developing social responsibility and those really crucial transferable skill, communication, critical thinking, problem solving, and actually applying knowledge in the real world.
Right. And, what's the ultimate purpose of that kind of education? It's about producing, vibrant, creative, innovative, rational, productive global citizens. And to get there, we often talk about interdisciplinarity versus multidisciplinarity. Maybe think of it like this. Multidisciplinarity is like a team meeting where everyone gives their separate report. Interdisciplinarity, though, that's when they actually blend their insights. They co-create something new that couldn't have come from just one perspective. It's kind of the difference between having ingredients laid out and actually cooking a new fused dish. The real power is in that interdisciplinary fusion where one field helps overcome blind spots in another.
Okay, so with this vision of integration, how do we actually bridge that historical divide? Singh's article mentions the two cultures split, which really solidified post-Renaissance and C.P. Snow highlighted back in 1953. It's a mental divide that sadly is still pretty present in young students today.
Precisely. And Singh gives this really compelling practical example from his own teaching experience. It's a foundation course called Principles of Science, or POS, taught to liberal arts undergrads. Its aim is ambitious. It's trying to dismantle that false dichotomy, as he calls it, that develops in students' minds the idea that sciences and humanities are totally separate, non-overlapping fields. It's designed to be much more than just your standard science class.
That makes total sense. So the core goal of this POS course isn't just learning science facts, it's about training students, regardless of their main discipline, training them to observe, analyze, experiment, think, and argue critically about all sorts of phenomena, including just everyday life stuff. It's really about building a way of thinking, like a new intellectual toolkit.
Exactly. And expanding on that, the course covers quite a range through its modules. Things like the methodology of science itself, the history and philosophy of science, principles of relativity and the quantum revolution, foundations of biological inquiry, climate looking at its physical, social, and cultural aspects, and finally, science, technology, and society. These modules are specifically put together to break down those mental walls and really foster an integrated understanding.
So, okay, given this integrated approach, what are the actual tangible benefits? What powerful new capabilities do future generations gain from this? Let's maybe dive deeper into the methods and philosophy behind it, starting with the methodology of science.
Well, it's fascinating to think about Galileo's famous statement, "In questions of science, the authority of 1,000 is not worth the humble reasoning of a single individual." That just powerfully shows how science challenges established systems, right? It encourages that individual inquiry, and the scientific method itself, observation, theories, experiments, predictions, it's absolutely crucial because it fundamentally builds critical thinking skills. And those skills go way beyond just science.
And then there's the history and philosophy of science, HPS. Singh really stresses putting this into science curricula too, which feels like such a natural fit.
It absolutely is. HPS helps us see science not just as, a pile of facts, but as this continuous human activity, shaped by culture, traditions, norms, ideas across time and space. Think about Niels Bohr's principle of complementarity. The idea that two seemingly opposite ways of looking at something, like light being both a wave and a particle, can both be right. That kind of mirrors how science and humanities, though different, offer complementary truths about our world. They enrich our total understanding. And HPS also introduces concepts like Thomas Kuhn's paradigm shifts, from the structure of scientific revolutions, those moments when our whole way of seeing the world changes, like Darwinism did for biology. This kind of educational integration is, in a way, its own paradigm shift.
So how does this translate to the real world? Singh's article uses the example of weathering climate change, which feels very immediate.
Yes, and this really drives the point home. Think about tackling a problem like the toxic haze that often covers New Delhi. You can't solve that just with atmospheric science or environmental science or biology alone. It absolutely demands a deep understanding of the sociocultural factors, the economics, the politics, combined with strong management skills, just to find a lasting solution. This example really shows the vital importance of having scientific principles within a liberal arts curriculum, because these complex problems demand that kind of multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary thinking.
Looking ahead then, what are the really profound implications of this integrated approach? How does it better prepare, say, today's college students for the challenges coming down the line?
Well, it's becoming increasingly clear, isn't it, that a broader education across natural sciences, social sciences, and humanities is just essential. Specialized conventional education is often proving ineffective when we face most contemporary issues. This integrated approach, on the other hand, it cultivates crucial qualities. Things like creativity, imagination, cultural sensitivity, and it instills a deeper sense of social responsibility. Singh argues exactly this. Narrow specializations do not give the intellectual flexibility and spirit of innovation required to cope with a rapidly changing world.
That really resonates with something Steve Jobs famously said. Something like, "It is in Apple's DNA that technology alone is not enough. It's technology married with liberal arts, married with the humanities, that yields us the results that make our heart sing." That just perfectly illustrates the value, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It really reinforces that a narrow specialization, just a single perspective, it simply doesn't provide the intellectual flexibility we need today. And the combined force of S&T alone, science and technology, it's ineffective in solving humanity's biggest problems if there's a lack of social responsibility among people. You need that broader, more empathetic understanding.
So, practically speaking, what does this mean for universities, for institutions? How can they actually start developing new courses based on this kind of work?
Well, Singh's article basically provides a working model with the POS course he described. So teachers interested in teaching this kind of course or similar integrated courses, they could definitely use that template and, improvise on it. This framework can serve as a really valuable starting point for anyone beginning a new curriculum focused on liberal education. And it aligns perfectly with the NEP 2020's call for universities in India to revise their courses, undergrad and postgrad, to provide truly comprehensive, interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary education.
Right. So we've kind of journeyed from seeing the limitations of those narrow specializations to understanding how policies like India's NEP 2020, combined with innovative courses like this Principles of Science, are really forging a new path for education. It's about building a generation that's equipped not just with facts, but with that crucial intellectual flexibility to thrive in a really complex world.
And maybe to tie it all together, C.P. Snow himself, the person who highlighted the two cultures divide in the first place, summed it up perfectly. He said, the clashing point of two subjects, two disciplines, two cultures of two galaxies, so far as that goes, ought to produce creative chances. In the history of mental activity, that has been where some of the breakthrough came. The chances are there now.
The chances are there now. So what new connections might you, listening right now, make by actively seeking out those clashing points? We really encourage you to think about how integrating different ways of thinking, embracing multiple perspectives, could help you personally relook, reshape, and reframe how you think and understand yourselves and others. It's a powerful thought.